I never thought my life would change because of a single month. I had always believed in science, in logic, in things I could see and prove. But what if something beyond logic could bring me peace? What if, instead of searching for answers, the answers found me? Welcome to English Tone, the channel where we teach English through stories that inspire and connect. Today's story is about a journey of transformation, faith, and unexpected discoveries. Stay with me till the end, because this might just be the story you need to hear. My name is Ariana, and I grew up in a world where faith was never a topic of discussion. Religion was something distant, something people followed out of tradition, but not something I ever felt connected to. My life revolved around ambitions, success, and the pursuit of happiness. I believed that if I worked hard enough, earned enough, and surrounded myself with the right people, I would eventually feel fulfilled. But no matter how much I accomplished, there was always an emptiness I couldn't explain. At night, when the world was quiet, that emptiness felt louder. I scrolled endlessly on my phone, trying to distract myself from a feeling I couldn't name. I watched motivational videos, read about mindfulness, and listened to podcasts on self-improvement, but nothing seemed to fill the void. There was always something missing, but I didn't know what. Then one evening, as I lay on my bed, exhausted from another day of trying to keep up with life, a video appeared on my screen. A woman sat in a simple, warmly lit room, speaking with a calmness that immediately drew me in. She was talking about Ramadan. I had heard the word before, but it had never meant anything to me. I thought it was just a religious tradition where people refrained from eating and drinking during the day. But as I listened, I realized there was more to it. Fasting isn't just about food, she said. It's about the soul, about cleansing your heart and mind, about breaking free from distractions and focusing on what truly matters. Something in her voice made me pause the video. I stared at the screen, replaying her words in my head. Cleansing the heart and mind. That was exactly what I had been searching for. My life was filled with distractions, social media, work, entertainment, but none of it ever gave me real peace. Could fasting really do that? Could skipping meals somehow clear the noise inside my head? I wasn't sure why, but I felt the need to know more. I started searching about Ramadan, reading articles, watching more videos, trying to understand why so many people observed this month with such dedication. Every story I found had something in common. People spoke of how Ramadan transformed them, how it gave them clarity, discipline, and a deep sense of inner peace. The more I read, the more intrigued I became. But a part of me was skeptical. Could it really make that much of a difference? I had tried so many things: meditation, therapy, self-help books. None of them had given me what I was looking for. But at the same time, what did I have to lose? Decided to try it. Not because I was religious, not because I was searching for faith, but because I wanted to see if it could truly bring the clarity I had been chasing for so long. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise, something I rarely did. I wasn't sure how to start, so I simply drank some water and ate a small meal, just as I had read people do before beginning their fast. As the sun rose, I reminded myself that for the rest of the day, I wouldn't eat or drink anything. By mid-morning, I felt fine. It was just like skipping breakfast. But as the hours passed, hunger began to creep in. My throat felt dry, my stomach ached slightly, and my energy started to fade. Normally, I would grab a snack or a cup of coffee, but today, that wasn't an option. By noon, I felt restless. My mind kept thinking about food, about the hours left until sunset. I started questioning why I was even doing this. What was the point of making myself uncomfortable? I picked up my phone, intending to distract myself, but then I remembered something I had read the night before. Ramadan wasn't just about hunger. It was about self-control, about breaking habits, about silencing the distractions. So I put my phone down. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. Instead of focusing on my hunger, I tried to focus on my thoughts. For the first time in a long time, I allowed myself to sit in silence without distractions, without escaping into social media or work. And then something unexpected happened. My mind, which was always racing, became quiet. I wasn't thinking about my endless to-do list. I wasn't stressing about the future or regretting the past. I was simply in the moment. I realized how much of my life had been spent running after success, running after happiness, running away from the thoughts that made me uncomfortable. But in that moment of stillness, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: peace. The day continued, and as sunset approached, I found myself appreciating the simplest things: water, food, the ability to eat when I needed to. I realized how much I had taken for granted. The fast had forced me to slow down, to reflect, to appreciate the things I never thought twice about. That night, as I lay in bed, I felt something shift inside me. It was subtle, but undeniable. The emptiness I had carried for so long didn't feel as heavy, and for the first time I felt a curiosity that went beyond just testing a new habit. I wanted to understand why Ramadan had such a deep impact on people. I wanted to know what else it could teach me. The next morning, I woke up with a new determination. I wasn't just going to fast. I was going to experience Ramadan fully. I was going to open my heart to whatever lessons it had to offer. I had no idea that this journey would lead me to something far greater than just self-discipline. I had no idea that this was the beginning of a transformation that would change my life forever. The next morning, I woke up with a strange excitement. The idea of fasting felt like a challenge, an experiment I was determined to complete. I had read stories about people fasting for an entire month, people who claimed it changed their lives, brought them clarity, discipline, and even a sense of peace. But for me, it was just a test. How hard could it be to go a few hours without food and water? I had skipped breakfast plenty of times before. This would be no different. As the day began, I felt normal, energized even. I went about my routine, checking my phone, responding to emails, and scrolling through social media. But as the hours passed, something started to change. My stomach tightened, and a dull ache settled in. It wasn't unbearable, but it was uncomfortable. I kept looking at the clock, wondering how much longer until sunset. Minutes felt like hours. My mind kept circling back to food. I could almost taste my morning coffee, the crisp crunch of toast, the sweetness of fruit. It was as if my senses had heightened, making me painfully aware of everything I was missing. By noon, the exhaustion hit me. My throat felt dry, and every sip of water I had ever taken in my life suddenly seemed like a luxury I had taken for granted. My body was screaming for relief, but I had made a promise to myself. I would see this through. I lay down on my bed, too drained to focus on anything else. The usual distractions, my phone, my laptop, the noise of the outside world, faded into the background. It was just me and my thoughts. And that was when something unexpected happened. My mind, which was usually racing from one thought to another, suddenly slowed down. It became quiet in a way I had never experienced before. I wasn't thinking about work, about social media, about the 100 little anxieties that usually filled my day. For the first time in years, I was fully present in the moment. There was no past to regret, no future to stress over. Just me in this moment, breathing, existing. It felt strange at first, almost unsettling. But the longer I sat with it, the more I realized how peaceful it was. As the hours dragged on, I became more aware of my body and its cravings. The hunger came and went in waves, but each time it hit, I noticed something new. It wasn't just about food, it was about control. My whole life, I had given in to every small craving, every distraction, every fleeting desire. I had never really tested my patience, my willpower. But now, I had no choice. The only way to make it through the day was to push past the discomfort, to remind myself that hunger wasn't permanent. It would come, and then it would go. I began to observe my thoughts, the way they drifted from one thing to another. In the absence of food, my mind started reflecting on things I usually ignored. Why did I always reach for my phone when I was bored? Why did I feel the need to constantly fill the silence? Was I afraid of being alone with my thoughts? Fasting wasn't just about abstaining from food. It was about learning to sit with myself, to face my own mind without distractions. By the time the sun began to set, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: gratitude. The simple act of drinking water felt like a gift. I had never appreciated it before, never realized how much I took it for granted. Every sip was a reminder of how much I had, how little I truly needed. It wasn't just about hunger anymore. It was about understanding what really mattered. I went to bed that night feeling something shift inside me. It wasn't just about proving to myself that I could fast for a day. It was about discovering a part of myself I had never known before. Fasting had forced me to slow down, to listen to my body, to observe my thoughts. It had shown me that I was stronger than I believed, that I didn't need constant distractions to get through the day. The next morning, I woke up with a new determination. If one day of fasting had given me this much clarity, what would happen if I continued? Could this be the answer I had been looking for? The thought excited me, but it also terrified me. What if this changed me in ways I wasn't ready for? What if this journey led me somewhere unexpected? I pushed the fear aside. I had started this as a challenge, a test of discipline. But now it felt like something more. I had to see where it would take me. Fasting had started as a challenge, but now it felt like an experiment, a puzzle I needed to solve. I had always believed in science, in logic, in things that could be measured and proven. So why was something as simple as not eating making me feel so different? I needed answers. I spent nights reading articles, watching medical documentaries, and searching for explanations. What I found was beyond what I had imagined. When the body goes without food for a certain period, it begins to function differently. Instead of constantly working to digest meals, the body shifts its focus to repair and renewal. Cells that are usually occupied with breaking down food, now have time to heal, to get rid of damaged parts and make new, healthier ones. This process, known as autophagy, had been studied by scientists for years, and it amazed me to learn that fasting wasn't just a religious practice. It was a scientifically proven method of rejuvenation, but the effects weren't just physical. My brain felt sharper, my focus clearer. I had always struggled with distractions, my thoughts constantly bouncing from one thing to another, but now everything felt more organized. My memory seemed stronger. I could recall details with ease, something I had always struggled with before. Researchers had studied this too, I discovered. Fasting increases the production of a protein called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which helps with cognitive function and mental clarity. That explained why I felt more present, more in control of my thoughts. And then there was the detoxification process. I had never thought about how much unnecessary junk my body stored simply because I was always eating. Without constant intake, my system had a chance to flush out toxins. I noticed changes in my skin which looked clearer than before. I felt less bloated, lighter, as if a weight I hadn't even known I was carrying had been lifted. But what surprised me most wasn't the physical benefits. It was something deeper, something I hadn't expected. There was a sense of control I had never experienced before. In the past, whenever I was sad or stressed, I turned to food for comfort. A bag of chips, a slice of cake, things that gave momentary pleasure but left me feeling worse later. Now, for the first time, I was facing my emotions without distractions. I had no choice but to sit with my thoughts, to understand them rather than run from them. One evening, as I sat quietly in my room, I realized something strange. The hunger that had felt unbearable in the beginning was no longer my focus. Instead, I felt an unusual sense of peace. It was as if my body and mind had settled into a rhythm, working together rather than against each other. The feeling was new, yet familiar, like I had known it all along but had forgotten in the chaos of everyday life. That night, as I lay in bed, my thoughts drifted to something I had read earlier. A doctor had said that fasting wasn't just about food, it was about resetting the entire body. It was like pressing a restart button, clearing out all the unnecessary clutter, and allowing the system to function the way it was meant to. And maybe that was what was happening to me. Not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, even spiritually. As the days passed, I became more aware of my surroundings. The smallest things began to hold meaning. The warmth of the sun on my skin, the cool evening breeze, the sound of my own heartbeat. Everything felt more vivid, more alive. It was as if I had spent my entire life asleep and was only now waking up. But if fasting could change the way I saw the world, what else could it change? What if the rest of my life had been built on distractions, on things that weren't real? What if there was something more, something I had never considered before? I didn't have the answers yet, but I knew one thing for certain. This was only the beginning. The evening air was cool, and the sky burned with shades of orange and pink as the sun slowly disappeared beyond the horizon. The world felt still, almost as if it was holding its breath, waiting for the moment when I would take my first sip of water after a long day of fasting. My hands trembled slightly as I lifted the glass to my lips. The moment the water touched my tongue, a wave of relief and gratitude washed over me. It was just water, something I had consumed without a second thought my entire life. But at that moment, it felt like the greatest blessing I had ever received. It was sweeter than any drink I had ever tasted, more refreshing than the finest of beverages. I closed my eyes and let the coolness spread through my body, as if every drop carried a lesson I had never truly understood before. I set the glass down and leaned back, staring at the sky as the stars began to appear. Everything felt different. Every sound, every breath, every sensation felt amplified, as if I was experiencing life for the very first time. I had spent years searching for happiness in accomplishments, in material things, in external validation. But here, in this simple moment of breaking my fast, I felt something I had never felt before: peace. A deep, all-encompassing peace that settled into my soul, filling the empty spaces I had long ignored. The realization struck me like a whisper in the wind, soft yet undeniable. Gratitude. That was the lesson. Ramadan wasn't just about refraining from food and drink. It was about learning to appreciate the things I had always taken for granted. It was about recognizing the abundance in simplicity, about understanding that true fulfillment didn't come from having more, but from appreciating what was already there. I thought back to all the times I had rushed through meals, mindlessly consuming without thinking about how fortunate I was to have food at all. I thought about the millions of people around the world who went hungry every day, not by choice, but because they had no other option. A lump formed in my throat, and I swallowed hard, feeling an overwhelming sense of humility. How had I lived my entire life without truly understanding this? How had I allowed myself to be blind to the blessings that had always been right in front of me? My heart ached, but not with sadness, with clarity. The kind of clarity that comes when the fog lifts, when the noise fades, when the truth stands before you, undeniable and pure. That night, sleep came easily, but the moment I opened my eyes the next morning, I knew something inside me had changed. It wasn't just a fleeting emotion or a passing thought. It was a certainty, a conviction, a truth that had taken root deep within me. For the first time in my life, I felt complete. I felt like I had found something I didn't even know I had been searching for. I sat up slowly, my fingers tracing the edge of the blanket as I let the feeling settle in. The journey I had embarked on during Ramadan had led me to this moment. The patience, the discipline, the self-reflection. It had all been guiding me toward something greater, something beyond myself. I had spent so much of my life trying to control everything, trying to make sense of the world through logic and reasoning. But now, for the first time, I was surrendering. Not out of weakness, but out of understanding. A soft breeze drifted in through the window, carrying with it a sense of serenity I had never known before. My heart pounded, not with fear, but with anticipation. I knew what I had to do. It wasn't a question anymore. It wasn't something I needed to debate or analyze. It was as natural as breathing, as effortless as the sunrise that painted the sky in golden hues. With slow, deliberate movements, I stood up and walked to the mirror. I looked at my reflection, not just at my face, but into my eyes, into the depths of who I was. And for the first time, I saw someone who was no longer lost, someone who had found a purpose, a truth that resonated with every fiber of her being. I took a deep breath, my hands clasped together, my heart steady. And then, with a voice that trembled with both nervousness and conviction, I whispered the words that would change my life forever. There is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger. The weight of the word settled over me, wrapping around me like a warm embrace. It wasn't just a statement. It was a commitment, a declaration, a homecoming, a journey that had taken years, yet had led me exactly where I was meant to be. As I stood there, letting the moment sink in, I realized something profound. I had spent my entire life searching for peace, but peace had been waiting for me all along. I had just needed to open my heart to it. I had just needed Ramadan to show me the way. Ramadan changed my life in ways I never expected. It taught me patience, self-control, and the true meaning of gratitude. But most of all, it led me to faith. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and comment. And if you want to hear more inspiring stories, make sure to subscribe to English Tone. Who knows? The next story might just be yours.